Hi, friends. Thanks for watching, and thanks for putting up with the camera there. So I just have this covering over the camera, and so when I begin to load for a live video, it seems like the color has a while to get the visuals to work. Anyways, I want to do a video about ascension. So in the New Age, there's all this hype about ascension, and I was a New Ager for 27 years, and Greg Braden would talk about ascension and Cryon, I believe, and it was just a thing, that you were meditating so that you could better ascend, like Drumvalo Melchizedek did a book about it, The Secret of the Flower of Life, part 1 and 2. So I was really into it, and it's so interesting because on one hand, New Agers were like, yeah, listening to channeled entities talking in funny voices, kind of like a seance. But then, if Christians were ridiculous, and Christians were talking about the rapture, and that kind of Christian was the real extreme crazy Christian, right? It's so interesting because I was like, oh, somebody who's into the rapture, that's some weird silliness, right? And anyway, so now I'm a believer, and the rapture is totally what I'm one of my biggest interests, because of all the stuff that's been going on in the news. There's just bizarre weather changes, people's bizarre behavior, their willingness to play with their immune system and blocking it and injecting it, and doing it to their children, and the executions in nursing homes and hospitals, in New York, and how a lot of medical providers are like, I'm God, and it's a joke. Life and death is just a joke, and it's arbitrary. And I just do see that all of this is a sign of the times. I mean, like, just how big business is so disrespectful of their customers. How big business, big tech, doesn't even care about its customers. As we see, big tech does whatever it wants, and the customers are so dependent and so emotionally stunted, and culture itself has been stunted because we're not going over to our neighbor's house for dinner. No, we're totally atomized as a culture. We don't even know how to interact with our neighbors, much less our family, because everybody's like emotionally attached to their phone and their apps, rather, or their pets. Like, people love their pets more than they love their family, more than they love their children, more than they love their spouse. And I do believe we've devolved as a species, just because we've decided to medicate. So everybody's on Prozac, so they have no range of motions, or Xanax, or whatever opiate now, so they have no range of motion. I mean, no, they have no range of emotion. And if you do have emotions, you're supposed to just sublimate them. If you're, and it's a very kind of a white liberal thing, like, you're not supposed to be hot-headed. That's definitely, I think it's a bit more European, or it's a bit like more Latina, that culture, those cultures, Europe and Latin cultures, definitely allow for more expression of anger. It seems much more permissible. I wouldn't say so much in Asian culture or African culture. Anyways, of course, I am just speaking in grand generalizations. just from what my observations were growing up in New York City, and it does seem like white culture wants everybody to just be quiet, quiet and predictable, and that's more like, I would say that's even more like upper class, because it's like Italians, they're totally like loud and boisterous and fun. Irish, Jewish, definitely, like there's definitely more emotional intelligence. I would say in the people that I've met of that descent, there's just more permission for a range of emotions and for talking things out. And the more, I mean, like the people that I met that just can't handle emotions, they don't really have much of a religious, actually, they don't have much of a religious or spiritual, they don't believe in God. And so I guess you're just supposed to drink and do drugs to just stay stable, go to work, have conspicuous consumption, and that's life. Like that's, of course, I'm definitely simplifying it for my argument here. But back to the ascension and the rapture. So in 2012, there was this big hype about the Mayan prophecy, and that this would be that this 2012 was the time in between no time. So the Mayans had their calendar. It ended at 2012, and Greg Braden was talking about how those that were there then were the walkers between the worlds, and it was more of an intellectual exercise or whatever, because things were fairly stable in 2012, even 2008. Like, I really don't know a whole lot of people. I wasn't affected by stuff in 2008 that much. I mean, throughout, like, I graduated college in 91, and there was a recession in California where I had moved to, and there had already been like difficulty with work and housing where I had been going to school. So I have always been in a context of just a lack of housing, a lack of jobs, recessions. Like, that has just been my entire adulthood. And it's very difficult to get out of it, like when, just certain key points. So anyway, so 2012 came and went, no big deal. But 2021, and just what next is going to happen? I mean, we've already had power outages, freak power outages, where winter storms in Texas, like what? People dying, freezing to death and stuff. So we know famines are on the way for America, that they're paying farmers not to grow, or they're going to penalize farmers who harvest, and so they want to starve the people. They're sabotaging the food chain, and we've known for 20 years that they didn't want people to harvest their rainwater, so they want people to die of thirst, and of course prevent people from growing. And they've poisoned the air and the water and the food, and they're trying to poison bipeds directly, and with some shedding as well. So, if there's a time for some very dramatic, supernatural act of God, I would say out of any time in my short lifetime, now seems very reasonable. And getting back to this whole like New Age thing, like New Agers it's so funny. It's like, New Agers totally appropriate Christianity, like the Judeo-Christian touchstones, and it's not New Agers' fault. It's Lucifer, it's Satan, who just is the imitator. That's all Satan does. Satan wants to be God, and so and Satan is far. He's a failure. Satan is a failure. Satan fails to create. Satan is just the imitator. So basically, God is the creator. God is the Alpha and the Omega, and Satan is just like, I want to be you, and Satan is just a very poor substitute. Um, and and I'm saying this because New Age, the New Age is a very poor substitute. When once you get out of it, it's a very poor substitute for reality. And I guess I'll just wrap up. Lord Jesus Christ came to set the captives free. And we've all heard, Earth referred to as the prison planet, and and I've never heard anything that quite resonated with me as that. And also, his burden is light and his yoke is easy. And those two really were revelatory for me. And there's more. Like once you look into things, it makes sense to you, and it can only be you having this discussion with yourself for you to really understand. But I just had to mention this ascension being really an appropriation of the rapture, and I just wanted to share my thoughts on that. So thanks so much for listening. God bless.